Welcome to Under One Roof MTL, where we demystify home ownership 1 week at a time. I'm joined, as always, by LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Hi, LJ.
Hi, Robyn. How's it going?
Fantastic. As well as Fred Bichette and Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Robyn.
Hey, Robyn.
We have a lot planned for you today. As always, we're going to pack as much content as possible into the show. We've got listener questions to answer. We're going to kick it all off by giving away some cookies from Felix and Norton. You can check out their store at the Blue Haven Shopping Center in DDO. If you think you know the answer to this trivia question and text it into 514-790-0800, you could receive cookies from Felix and Norton. Our question for this week: what is a lien on a property? What is a lien on a property? Bonus points if you think you know how to spell it. If you think you know the answer, 514-790-0800. Please include your name as well so we can give you a shout out. Lots of stuff in the news this week. The one that caught my attention was this story. The average age of first-time homebuyers is creeping upwards. We've been seeing this for the last several years, shall we say. But now the average age of first-time homebuyers across Canada is around 40. 40 for a first-time home buyer. Does that seem high to you? I'm guessing not, since you're dealing with all the 40-year-old first-time home buyers, right, gentlemen?
Well, it seems high to me because Steve modeled this. So they use a starting age of 23, and they expect the person to save between 15 and 25% as their down payment. So it estimates, based on 23, 15 to 25% down payment, that in Vancouver, a first-time home buyer will be 46 years old. In Toronto, you'll be 40, and in Montreal, you'll be 39. But where I disagree with the study is that 15 to 25% down payment, because a basic down payment can be as low as 5%. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that Elias invited me to the show on Thursday because there was another study that came out. So there was this article talking about the average age of the first-time home buyer, but then the Fraser Institute study came out saying home ownership and rent affordability in Canadian CMAs between 2014 and 2023 has gone out of control. Housing costs have outpaced incomes, and the affordability gap is widening. So I'd love to hear what LJ has to say about that, because obviously he's more on the real estate side and he can see how homes are increasing. The basic premise of this study was if you have a median income, you can no longer afford a medium priced home in some of those greater cities. So the gap has widened. So LJ, what are your thoughts on that?
The reality is buying a home now is more difficult than it ever has been. That's 100% true. We've seen people come up with down payments, whether it's gifts from families, whether it's great opportunities at work, or just very diligent saving. But people have to do more today in order to be able to afford a home they used to in the past. Now, we work with the people who are effectively in a position to start buying more so than not. And I would say that a lot of our target audience or the clients that we work with to start with have been millennials. So most of us are below that 40-year threshold. But if we look at our target base, it's all professionals. It's all people who entered the workforce primarily when they were 23 years old, right out of university. They started saving immediately. You have two-income households possibly, and it has made it possible. I would say that I'm not working primarily with, let's say, a median income if you look at our entire list of clients. That being said, we've looked at clients together this year who were two very much median income people who just did the bare minimum to save what they could. They were making sure they were living below their means, and they were able to buy a duplex in Lachine earlier this year, remember? So while the article is true that it is more difficult than it has been in the past, I think we have to try and take a step away from this doom and gloom and that it's absolutely impossible and focus on the fact that if we do take certain steps and measures, which are difficult, I'm not saying that they're super easy, but if we do take the time to prepare ourselves, buying a property is still feasible and it will set you up for long-term success.
So building on that, Fred and I have these conversations with clients on a day-to-day basis. That's exactly what I said to Elias. I said, if you want to purchase a home, you need a strategy, you need a plan. And I hear Fred say this day in, day out. So what people need to consider is perhaps buying smaller, maybe starting with a condo. buying further out, um, possibly increasing the amount you're saving, or finding a side hustle so you can put that side hustle money towards your down payment. Um, Combined incomes, very important. Leverage the available programs. So FHSA, RRSP, TSFA, when you derive a benefit from that, stack it into the other. And let's face it, the baby boomers are sitting on the greatest amount of wealth. That means mom and dad. And don't be shy. Don't be embarrassed. Go knock on their door and see if they can gift you part of the down payment. Because what you need to do is to get into a home. Your dream home, if you want to buy your dream home and live in your dream home on day one, maybe it's going to be when you're 40 or 50 years old. But also do the math. You got a 25-year mortgage and you bought your house at 40, you're going to be paying mortgage payments until you're 65. And if you take a 30-year amortization period, you're going to be 70 and still making mortgage payments. And most people want to use their homes as their retirement fund. Sorry, I'm seeing Fred wants to chime in. Go, 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 Fred. Sorry.
No, no, I was about to say maybe stay with your parent a little bit longer. And when you finish your university and you're getting a good job, stay there a year or 2 or 3 and try to save as much as possible. This could be a very good tips. I know most of the time, even my son says, "Oh, when I'm going to go to an apartment," I says, "No, you're not going to go to an apartment. You're going to stay here. You're going to save your down payment, and I'm going to help you to buy your first home."
Fred, I got news for you. Your two sons are never moving out.
Okay, but guys, let's talk to the boomers and I guess Gen X parents of the Gen Z kids and the Gen Alpha kids. Let your kids live at home rent free. Be willing to help them if you have the means to do so. Because there's an awful lot of discourse online of, well, I didn't have help from my parents, so I shouldn't have to help my kids. Things are different now.
That's a great point. So if you're going to let your kids live at home for free, make believe that they're paying rent. So that $1,500, that $2,000 that they'd be paying in rent if they moved out, they should put that into a fund and use that for their down payment. And before you know it, so let's spitball it just for fun. 2,000 a month, 12 months, that's 24,000. A 5% down payment plus closing costs on a $400,000 condo, you're looking at about 25, 30 grand. In a year and a half, you can save up enough for your down payment. Because the problem is not affordability. The problem is coming up with the down payment.
And that's why we have to be careful with that lifestyle creep.
Yeah, maybe, you can go to McDonald's and buy a dollar coffee, or you can go to Starbucks and buy an $8 coffee.
Are there still
Your
dollar
choice.
coffees at McDonald's?
Yeah.
And Oregon's and dollar ice creams in the summer. There's all the good stuff.
Wow. Or make your coffee at home like I do. Buy a nice little thermos and bring it with you everywhere you go.
Now everyone's going to come by your house, Robyn.
Yeah, exactly. Coffee on me. Okay, I also want to talk about Montreal's rental market because Fred, you kind of mentioned your son wanted to move out and get his apartment. And trust me, I was the same way. I grew up on the South Shore. As soon as I turned 18, I got an apartment in Montreal so I could be closer to the action. Maybe that was my first mistake. But is Montreal's rental market changing? That first apartment, I had two roommates. My share of the rent was $300 for that apartment in NDG. Tough to find rent like that today. There was a report this week, though, that landlords are having a hard time finding tenants. Is this what you're seeing, LJ?
This is what I've been seeing, to be honest. This year has been the toughest year to find tenants in the last 5 years, since the beginning of COVID, to be quite honest. There's a couple different factors that are playing a role in this. I'd say primarily is the shift away from the short-term rental market with the law that was passed in Montreal earlier this year, stating that as of September, you're not allowed to do short-term or Airbnb unless you have a CITQ permit. That has brought a lot of short-term properties onto the long-term market, increasing the inventory levels. And effectively, it's supply and demand, like we talk about just about every single week. Because we're increasing the amount of supply available, people are having their choice of the property that they want. At the same time, with the constraints that we've seen on people's spending abilities, you're seeing more and more people trend to move back home, as well as move in with more roommates. So all of this put together has effectively put downward pressure on the rental market, bringing rents down. We've renewed certain units for less than we had them rented for the year before because it was more cost efficient to keep the tenant in there because it was a good tenant, then look for a new tenant, pay pay the rental fee on the new tenant, have to go through the due diligence, and risk potentially having a vacancy. So we have made that concession this year to keep good tenants in properties, and it's what we're seeing in the general market. Now, again, it really depends on if your rents are on the high end, on the low end, and the medium end, because if you're on the lower end of the spectrum, that unit's going to fly. But if you're at average price to above average price, that unit can sit in the market right now, which is not something we've seen for the last few years.
So if you are a landlord, you're having trouble finding tenants and you need some help on this front, give the Plex Doctor a call. They'll help you organize yourself and make sure that you've got people in those buildings. 514-709-6397 or visit their website at plexdr.com. Still to come, flipping versus long-term holding. Which investment strategy makes the most sense right now? LJ will break it down for you after we check traffic at the CJD 800 Traffic Center. This is Under One Roof. I'm Robyn. That's Fred. That's Martin. That is LJ. Flipping versus long-term holding. Which is the best investment strategy in today's market? LJ, when somebody's considering, buying a piece of real estate as an investment and they aren't sure, should I, renovate and flip the property or should I hold it, or maybe rent it out, maybe live in it myself? What would you say is the best strategy right now?
It really depends on the person, on their know-how, on their abilities. To be honest, in today's market, it's very tough to make a flip pencil out unless you're in the construction business. So unless you have some economies of scales there, unless you're going to do some of the work yourself because you're handy and you have the experience, etc., the margins are just too tight in today's market. The price of materials has gone up, the price of labor has gone up, and making a flip work, unless you, let's say, inherit a property at an incredible rate, it's very difficult to see an investment of this nature pencil out. So I've been warning people to be very cautious when thinking about doing that, or potentially go on a more of a longer term flip where it's more so a hey, renovate it entirely, enjoy it for a couple years, and then sell it when you're ready to move on to a next project. But don't think of it as a quick flip, especially with the new federal tax implications with that. They're now taxing it entirely if you try and flip it within the same year. So be cautious on that front as well. We had that change to the federal budget last year. My opinion is always long-term hold. Real estate is a long-term game. Anything you try and do for short-term bursts or trying and timing it is just very, very difficult. And we're no longer in a world where the median price point in Montreal is $350,000, where you can kind of get those margins effectively. At our current average price point, it's just too tight of a game. And if you're in it for the long term, you have a lot more options available for you in when it comes to penciling it out, whether it's the appreciation, whether it's increased rental revenue, whether it's improvements that you make to the property. You just have a lot more approaches available to you in order to really make things pan out in your favor.
If you do decide to flip, though, you kind of outlined the cost, risks that are associated. What are some other risks? Because the house we bought was a flip, and it looks really pretty, but then after a few months, you start to notice a few things that maybe weren't done so well. So, what are some of the risks, or perhaps the things that people underestimate when they take on a flip?
Everything. It really comes down to your experience, right? If you've never done a full renovation project, you have no idea what you're going to find when you start opening things up. And then understanding that unless you have the experience and a thorough enough inspection to really understand what's going on with the property, once you start opening walls, you start to notice things. You start to notice leaks or mold or things that you weren't expecting that will continuously add cost to this project entirely. And once you find it, you have to fix it. You're not just going to cover it up again because that'll be in bad faith. So you want to make sure that you understand how much of a renovation project you're going to be taking on and all of the risks that come along with it. Obviously, if this is your full-time job or this is your career, then you're playing a numbers game. You might lose a little bit on some, but you should come out ahead if you have the right experience on more than less. As a buyer, though, you always want to be cautious with flips. Who is the
Yeah.
flipper? How much experience does he have? Does he do this often? Is he selling it under his personal name or is he selling it under a corp that he might close down tomorrow on you? So you have absolutely no recourse against it. There's a lot of little questions you got to be asking yourself. And that's where, again, working with an experienced realtor, working with an experienced inspector, really doing a thorough due diligence is super important because we can all put lipstick on a pig. But
Uh,
when you're buying a property, you want to make sure that's not what you're buying.
Also, LJ, I could add that, do you have enough funds to do a flips, because that could be difficult if you opening walls, as LG said, and you having extra expense. You have to consider that as well.
100% carrying cost. If you expect to sell it, let's say in 6 months, and all of a sudden it take you an extra 6 months to sell, You've had to carry the interest payments on that. You've had to carry the taxes, the insurance, the all of these things. And insurance on a vacant property is significantly more expensive than insurance on an occupied property. So there's a lot of little things that people don't think about. They just say, "We saw it on HGTV. We're going to do this, no problem." And I'm all for the entrepreneurial spirit and wanting to take on a side project, but make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into before you put all your eggs into this basket that you're unfamiliar with.
Now, the secret to flipping is getting in and getting out as quickly as possible for the person who's flipping the home. So, if you're a buyer, should you be weary of purchasing a flipped house?
You should be wary of purchasing any property is the reality. We need to make sure we're doing our due diligence, right? Now again, when we are buying a flip, we're being extra diligent because the perspective of a flipper when he's changing the kitchen, when he's changing the HVAC, when he's fixing walls, when he's changing the floors is very different than Martin, for example, yourself. If you're in a home and you plan on living there for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years, you approach the decision as to what materials to use and which contractors to use a little bit differently. It's no longer the most cost sensitive decision. It's the quality of life that you're going to have with these materials and experience decision. So that again, it all comes down to having the right team that surrounds you if you don't have the experience to be able to tell what you're actually looking at and look at the finishings because we can tell a lot of the times where things finish by true professionals. Do we have invoices? Do we have warranties? Was the roof changed? Did they use the cheapest material possible? Do we have a 10-year warranty versus a 5-year warranty versus no warranty? Did they do anything to the foundation? Did they open things up or did they just patch and paint? All of these questions are things that we're really looking into so that we understand. I won't say that all flips are bad. We bought some excellent flips. My clients have been super happy with them, but we've made sure to do the proper due diligence and ensure what we're getting ourselves into and ask for invoices as much as possible. Because whenever there's no invoices, we all know that chances are high that it was Johnny's cousin's sister's brother who did the work and nobody knows what their experience and know-how and their insurance liability was to even do this work.
If you are deciding to go the long-term investment route, is there a sweet spot for how long you should hold a property before you sell it?
I tell people a minimum of 5 years. We really should be looking at real estate on a 5-year outlook. We can get away with 3 sometimes, but my goal is always to say 5 because between welcome tax, potential capital gains, broker's commissions, just carrying costs, everything involved in it, you want to give yourself a bit of time to have that compounding effect to the appreciation, to the work that you've done to it. So 5 years is usually that minimum timeline. And again, the longer it goes, usually the better the returns are going to be. But that's what I say is your outlook should be on a long-term horizon is the minimum.
Also, LJ, you may saving on the potential penalty on your mortgage, which is good.
100%. To
5-year
cover everything up.
return. Yeah.
Mm. And I guess it would probably make the most sense to not leave that space vacant and hold on to it for 5 years. Pay for it. Look for a tenant, somebody that can move in and carry some of those costs for you, right?
100%. And again, if your plan is to sell as a flip down the road, maybe you set up the layout the way you want the layout to be in the future. Maybe you go with baseline materials today, and you prepare yourself to do a bit of a facelift again at the end before you go sell it. Whether that's update the countertops or change things of that nature. You know, you do all the heavy lifting up front, but maybe you give it another facelift right before the sale to really help make it look nice and shiny.
There's a rule that if it's your principal residence, you don't pay capital gains. I've heard of people that sort of stay in a house for a year. It really is call it a masked flip, and then they move on. But I've heard that the governments are actually clamping down. If they see somebody moving every year and sort of renovating a house, moving on to the next, and claiming it to be their principal residence, is there a danger that they're going to get their hands slapped by the different government bodies and say, hey, you're going to pay capital gains on that?
Of course, it all comes down to good faith versus bad faith. If you can honestly put together a reason why you're moving every second year or every 18 months that aligns with you took a new job here, your kid started school there, whatever it might be, then as long as you can justify it, you're in the clear. But if you're doing this with a business perspective into it and you're trying to game the system, you're putting yourself at risk. It all comes down to whether you get audited or not. But the reality is, if you can't provide a solid enough response for the CRA auditor to say, you know what, yeah, I believe your story and I believe that you're not doing this with bad faith, then you're exposing yourself to risk like anything.
If you're excuse me. If you're ready to invest in real estate, maybe you want to flip a house, maybe you want to purchase something and hold it for 5 years before you sell it, give LJ a call and he can help you figure out the right strategy. 514-500-4040. Coming up, is it possible to use cryptocurrency to buy a house? My gosh, Fred and Martin are so hip. They'll have the answer for you after this. This is indeed Under One Roof MTL. I'm Robyn, that's Fred, that's Martin, that is LJ. We get a lot of questions from listeners that we don't always have time to get to. So this is one from last week that we got via text message. And you can always text in your questions, by the way, at 514-790-0800. And this person asked, how do you remove a deceased person from a mortgage? I imagine there is some sort of process involved in this, and you probably need a death certificate.
Yeah. So Fred and I did some research this week. So we put together sort of a kind of a step-by-step. So it starts in Quebec by finding someone who's going to be in charge. So that's usually the liquidator of the succession, basically called the executor. If there's no will, the family, the heirs, will name somebody. So once that person is named, they're charged to do the following, step by step. First, gather the documentation. Not easy. Got to get a death certificate, the will, if there is one. And we week after week, we tell people, have a will. Because if you don't have a will, it gets really complicated very quickly. Then they got to actually find proof or get proof that they are the liquidator, the executor. And a notary can help you with this. Then what we're trying to do is to remove that person from the mortgage. You got to call the bank. You got to call the lender. And they're going to ask you for proof. So make sure you have that proof and be prepared. Tell them that the borrower has passed away. Ask them for their estate deceased borrower process. Then ask for a mortgage statement and a payout statement. Important to keep up the payments because you don't want the house to go into default. You don't want the mortgage to go into default. Then you got to turn around and ask the family members or the heirs, what do you guys want to do with the house? Do you want to sell it? Which is usually the case, unless there's a partner in the house. And if someone wants to keep the house, say a spouse or an heir, then they're going to have to get qualified for a new mortgage to be able to purchase that house. It's very important to work with a notary because the notary will handle all the legal paperwork to transfer the ownership through the estate. Then it comes to close it out. You got to be patient because all this takes an enormous amount of time. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of being on hold to get the proper documentation from the different government entities. You got to wait for things to show up in the mail. So if you're selling, the notary uses the sale money to pay off the mortgage and gets it discharged. If you're keeping, the new owner signs the new mortgage and the old mortgage gets replaced. So quick rules of thumb, 3 of them. Notary changes the ownership and the title. Bank lender changes to the mortgage or the loan. And liquidator is the person who drives the whole process.
Okay, so it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3. Make sure
No, it's not. And it's in a more amount of time, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Wow. Okay, noted. Hope that answers your question. If you have any other questions, of course, you can send them to 514-790-0800, or you can email us underoneroofmtl@gmail.com. Okay, I'm so excited about this topic because I barely understand.
Don't be too excited.
Yeah, okay, but I barely understand what crypto is, let alone understanding how to use it to buy a house or get a mortgage. So I didn't even know that this was an option. If you're sitting on a whole pile of Bitcoin, you can use that to buy a house?
Well, so Fred and I are getting a lot of statements from people who are looking to purchase houses and then want to use some of their crypto as the down payment or actually to purchase the house. So what is cryptocurrency? Great question. It's digital money secured by encryption and recorded on a shared online ledger, blockchain, without needing a bank.
Okay, it's a lot of words.
That's
there.
as vague as you can make it.
It's basically fake money. It's digital money that counts for real money, and the value of that that fake money, Bitcoin, has fluctuated over time. Like some people bought Bitcoin very early for next to nothing and now they're millionaires.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have made a ton of money with Bitcoin. A lot of people have lost their shirts, and but more and more Canadians, it's coming out of the cellar, let's say, and more people are holding cryptocurrency, and more people are saying, "Can I use this to purchase a house?" So the short answer is yes, but with certain caveats. And there are probably going to be extra steps needed for you to actually be able to use it. So we went around. So we checked with the Canadian Revenue Agency, and they treat cryptocurrency as a commodity. So if you sell your crypto and use the cash for a down payment, you'll likely trigger a taxable event. In other words, capital gains, you'll need to pay tax. On the regulatory side, l'Autorité des marchés financiers, l'IMF, in Quebec warns that cryptocurrency or crypto assets are not legal tender. They're highly volatile, and many crypto platforms are not sufficiently regulated. From a mortgage and lender side, major lenders still are very cautious when funds are derived from crypto. The key issue is, what was the source of these funds? What's the provenance of these funds? Because they're very concerned about money laundering. Also, be aware they all have different risk policies, so not one shoe fits all sizes. In Quebec, Canada, there's no explicit rule saying you cannot use crypto funds to purchase or to use as a down payment, but regulatory and lenders impose major constraints. So if you want me to keep going, I'll keep going.
Well,
So,
Fred, did you have something you
well,
wanted to add?
no, I was about to say that if you have a Bitcoin or crypto, if you're thinking of purchasing a house, you need to convert it away in advance. That's the first tip that we'll give, convert it 90 days, 120 days in advance. Like that, you turn it as a saving in your account.
Yeah.
And that's
So if
what
you're
you
going to
should.
try to use your crypto statement and say, I've got the money, the lender's going to say no. So I agree 100% with Fred. You need to convert your crypto into cash and have it sit in an account for 90 days. So you got to move it to your regular bank account, have it sit for 90 days. And then what you really need to do, because they'll still want to know, where's that money coming from? So you need a clear paper trail. So the original crypto wallet that you had, the exchange statements, the sale transaction. So when you sold your crypto, the transfer into your bank account, and the bank account statement where that money is now sitting. You got to make sure that if you've created a tax event, that you've paid the taxes on the capital gains of this. And then it's really important, and I'm going to preach for our own paroisse, work with a mortgage broker that knows these rules. Because if a mortgage broker says, nah, no problem, you've got the money, we'll just use your statements and it'll be proof that you've got the funds for your down payment or for the purchase of the house, many of the lenders, because of the volatility of crypto, will say, no, you don't have the funds. And if you don't convert it, and they want to see that 90 days, they want to see that money sitting in that account for 90 days, then the whole deal may implode, or it'll be delayed, or it'll be denied. So make sure that, if you're going to use your crypto, again, Fred said it, 90 days in advance, convert it, and make sure that you're working with a lender that accepts those kinds of funds.
Can you use your crypto as collateral so that you wouldn't have to sell it? Because you mentioned capital gains tax. If I don't want to pay capital gains, no?
No, they won't accept it because of the volatility. Today it's worth 100, tomorrow it's worth 10, and the day after it's worth 200. And
I would say
people have made a fortune, and that's where people lost their shirts.
I would say crypto, it could be a good investment if you really believe in it. But again, it's like any investment that you can have, you have to convert it, like to make it work for you. Like if you leave it in your Bitcoin or crypto account, as Martin says, it's not really, it's real, but not really for Canadian bank.
Yeah, it's coming out of the shadows. I mean, you look at the Trump administration and the Trump family now that have their own coin. And so, they're trying to legitimize it because there's a ton of money to be made in Bitcoin. But there are other people who say it's the largest Ponzi scheme in the world.
Wow. Wow, those are fighting words. Okay, if you're sitting on a whole pile of Bitcoin and you're like, hey, maybe I should use that to purchase a house, get in touch with Fred and Martin. They can help walk you through the step-by-step process to make sure you're doing everything on the up and up so that you can get approved. Go to their website, fredandmartin.com. Coming up, our property of the week, plus the answer to our trivia question of the week. That's all coming up after we check traffic at the CJD 800 Traffic Center. Wrapping up on Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robyn, that's Fred, that's Martin, that's LJ. It is time for our property of the week. Where are you taking us, LJ?
I'm taking you to Point St. Charles. If you're looking for the perfect blend of charm, comfort, and location, welcome to 2381 Rue Knox Unit 2, a bright and modern 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath condo in the heart of Point St. Charles. Enjoy sleek finishings, in-unit washer and dryer, private backyard access, and your own outdoor parking spot, as well as a locker. All of this just minutes from the Lachine Canal, Charlevoix Metro, shops, parks, and more. Listed at just $375,000, this gem won't last long. This is right in line with the price point we discussed earlier in the show and what you could buy with under $400,000. Call us today at 514-500-4040 to book your private tour, and then stop by Sunday's Cafe on Center Street. I love going there for brunch. They've got excellent breakfast sandwich, smoothies, coffee, acai bowl, you name it. Menu's awesome.
It's a tragedy. You guys remember Manions? I'm showing my. Remember Manions? Manions
Like,
were
yes.
deep and number one, number two, number three.
Yeah.
It's Manions is gone, and I feel that's just a Montreal tragedy.
There's several of those, Martin.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can talk about the green spot. You didn't mention the green spot. Well, the Festival du Hot Dog at 50 cents a hot dog. Come on.
I didn't talk about Paul Patat, which is actually like almost a rock throw away, effectively. I didn't talk about Connie's Pizzeria either, which is right next to you as well. There's tons of great spots, to be honest. I mean, the list goes on.
Robyn, what's your favorite pub down there?
In Point St. Charles?
Corner of Charlevoix and Notre Dame.
How close is that? I mean, I love Burgundy Lion.
You're lying.
Yeah.
They've got I love their breakfast, their traditional English breakfast with where else are you going to get blood pudding in Montreal but the Burgundy Lion pub? Okay, let's get to our trivia question of the week, brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. This week, our question was, what is a lien on a property? And we're not talking about leaning on the wall, L-E-A-N. We're talking about a lien on a property, L-I-E-N. A lien is a legal claim or hold placed on a property to secure the payment of a debt. It acts as a creditor's right to seize and sell the property to collect on the debt if the owner fails to pay. So what would a lien look like in practice? Like if somebody was taking out a loan, there was a lien on the property, or?
You know who's good to put a lien on your property? The government.
Oh,
If
nice.
you end up and you're self-employed, you don't pay your taxes, you let it go. What do you think would happen after a year or two? Government say, listen, we had a deal. You don't want to pay us. You don't, we'll put a lien on your property because you didn't respect your agreement. Like that's what we call a lien. Yeah.
It's a disaster.
Make sure you pay your taxes if you're self-employed. I'm self-employed. I pay my taxes.
Pay your bills.
Pay your bills. Our congrats to Matt in Paincor for getting that correct. Yay, Matt. If you want a chance at winning some cookies, make sure you're listening to the show every week. We always have cookies to give away. That pretty much does it for us for this week. If you have a question and you want it featured on the show, you can email us underoneroofmtl@gmail.com. You can text in during the week as well, 514-790-0800. Just tell Andrew, Elias, or Aaron to send this to Robyn and they'll make sure that I get it. In the meantime, if you want to speak to the guys individually, you can do so. LJ, where do people go to get in touch with you?
You can check out our website, ljrealties.com, or on all socials with the handle LJ Aguinaga or LJ Realties. You can also book a meeting directly with me with meetwithlj.com. You can also call or text me at 514-500-4040. And if you're looking to free up some of your time, contact my property management company, The Plex Doctor, to take over and give you back your time. You can find us at plexdr.com or 514-709-6397.
Plex Doctor has the coolest app. So easy to use. I love a good app, guys. I love a good app or portal. It makes life so
We
much.
love a good tenant.
I like to consider myself a good tenant. I always
You're
pay
a
on.
great tenant. Of course.
Fred and Martin, where do people go to reach you?
Easiest way is through our website. So you can book a meeting directly with Fred. Fred's number is there. Fred's email address is there. Likewise for me. So fredmartin.com. So if you're looking to refinance, reverse mortgage, you're a first-time home buyer, you want to use some crypto, give us a call. fredmartin.com.
fredandmartin.com. And by the way, I'm very pleased to receive call from people. I get a lot, and having a little chat to see what could be better for your situation. I'm more than happy to help you.
Awesome. If you missed anything, you can listen to this show in its entirety on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. I believe we're even on LJ's YouTube channel as well. You can check out the podcast there. So you have plenty of options. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robyn. Have a wonderful Sunday.